Dear Evgeny, I'd like to hear your opinion on the Great Depression in the United States. There is one bad habit that afflicts many. They keep peddling this event as the bane of capitalism. Yes, back then there was indeed an economic breakdown, but I find it hard to believe it was as catastrophic as people now make it out to be. I only believe what I can see. Hollywood was producing great movies, the theatrical life was thriving, and more to the point, I've spoken personally with members of the older generation who lived through it. Not a single horror story came from their mouth. It seems many of those shocking photographs from the Great Depression era were either taken out of context or are outright forgeries. Please, if you would, dot the I's and cross the T's on this matter.
Alright, straight to the point. The stock market tanked, triggering a cascade of problems. The whole mess dragged on for about 10 years, with peaks and slumps along the way. But still, 10 years of economic troubles and the unemployment crisis. And that's it. We're talking about the degree of disaster, and it all comes down to how to serve it up, right? It wasn't a grand catastrophe, not even close. Take note, whenever the leftists bring up this topic, they can't help but make the same glaring mistake. It all happened 100 years ago, yet no payoffs to be seen today. Capitalism didn't fall, nothing happened. Suppose it had all ended back when the Depression began in 1930, or 1929 to be precise. Then let's say by 1935, or 1940, or 1950 it hit the very bottom. The end of the market economy, the end of capitalism, the end of private property. A total dead end, and all because of the Great Depression. But that's utter rubbish. On the contrary, Western capitalist society pulled itself out of the Depression just fine. Capitalism came back even stronger. They have the experience now, all tried and true. What's more, it was a wealthy harvest of both cultural and technological achievements. Just hear those leftists screeching and wailing about it. They still can't grasp how trifling it really was. They can't admit it was a failure of their ideals. Sure, it was a crisis. So what? What is a crisis? It comes and goes. Had it not been dealt with back then, it might have turned into something epical. But no historical meltdown ever occurred. It's just one of those events that got grotesquely overblown. Someone simply saw an opportunity to puff it up for their own benefit. The Soviet Union and other leftists tried to make it look bigger than it was. Fine, I get it, it served their agenda, but what's the point of still kicking it around now when it ought to be long forgotten? It was 100 years ago, stop chewing it over already. At the same time, Roosevelt and his team saw it as their chance to promote themselves, to show how much they'd done to improve life and guide the people through the ordeal. But many researchers today recognize that it was mostly smoke and mirrors. Everything would have normalized without their efforts, which had no real effect. That being said, what we're looking at is self-promotion, and it came from within. And indeed, as you rightly pointed out, cinema was at its best. Those were the days of masterworks, especially the early musicals. It was a multi-layered, variegated phenomenon. Besides, labor was cheap. Everyone was thrilled to have a job, and they did their work mighty well. So yes, films were great, and whenever they addressed social problems, the impact was real. That's another factor to consider. The events were promoted on screen, and since cinema is the most important of all the arts, it left a mark on the public conscience. To sum it up, we have leftist propaganda, Roosevelt and his team's self-promotion, and Hollywood, brilliant at the time, producing many great films which, in turn, left a strong imprint on generations of people. If you ask me, I'd say that 70% of the story is just all talk. And more importantly, it's completely wrong to claim that it serves as some grim indication of anything. In fact, it indicates nothing, except that it was merely one of many aspects of economic life. The market economy and capitalism faced it head-on and held their ground, all while producing many good things. That's it. That's the end of the story.